creature as frightening as the devil. A herald of catastrophe and calamity.
I think it was something from another planet.
The creature known as the Mothman appears only at night, instilling fear and terror in all those around it.
People were taking guns and rifles. It was kind of like a hunt for Frankenstein.
But who or what exactly is the Mothman?
Is it mutants? Is it some sort of unknown, top-secret, evil monster that came out of it?
What's the story behind the dreadful winged creature? The great myths of mankind. Mysteries passed on over thousands of years. Inexplicable events, places shrouded in legend, and superhuman heroes. Even scientists are fascinated. Is there any truth to these ancient legends? Researchers across the globe are working hard to solve the greatest mysteries of our time. Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Faye Leaport is on her way to a deserted military facility. She will never forget what happened to her and her siblings here 50 years ago.
This is the road we turned on that takes you to the TNT area. And back then it was not paved. It was a gravel driveway that could fit 4 car lengths side by side. And this is where we was going. From the minute we turned on the road back there, that thing was right beside of us.
Faye Leaport is convinced of one thing. The creature they met that October night in 1966 was neither human nor animal.
There was something about it that attracted me from the time I looked at it over here by my window, and that was those eyes. They were so big and went up to a point, and they're just red like you've never seen a red before.
And it's not the first eerie encounter of this kind. Several reports claim that this mysterious creature has been sighted in this region.
It was standing there, and I tried to yell, and I couldn't make a noise. It just sort of paralyzed me. I was just sort of frozen.
It wasn't a man, it had feathers. Maybe my whole mind just died.
See, there were always rumors that whatever it was lived in that old power plant nest.
Oh, I have no doubt in my mind at all that there is other civilizations, and we're not here by ourselves, hell.
What the eyewitnesses describe is astonishingly consistent. They all claim to have seen a human-like figure with fiery red eyes, hands with long claws, and wings spanning several meters. They call him the Mothman.
In modern legends and urban myths, the incident is likely to have happened to somebody close to you, a relative or a friend. They also follow the structures of ancient myths. So, for example, in the Mothman, we have a man with superhuman powers, somebody who is hugely big and can fly at incredible speeds.
Point Pleasant on the Ohio River. Between 1966 and 1967, the Mothman was reportedly spotted here over 100 times. To this day, many people still cannot explain these strange occurrences. Many believe he is a herald of disaster. Even Hollywood has capitalized on the incidents. The film The Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere brought worldwide attention to the myth. The Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant. This is where Jeff Wemsley has been collecting everything related to the eerie creature. It all began on November the 12th, 1966.
There were some guys that were digging a grave late one evening. The sun was just going down, and they described what they called a brown flying man that flew over top of their heads as they were digging the grave.
2 days later, the next encounter.
Now, on November 14th, Noel Partridge was sitting in his living room with his family. They were watching TV. It was about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and he said he heard a strange whizzing noise, a high-pitched shrill, out in the back of the field behind his house.
All at once, the TV started winding up like a high-pitched generator, winding up to a fever pitch. And at the same time, my dog, the Bandit, on the front porch was letting his long death howl.
And the screen exploded into the floor. He went out to the back to have a look, and he saw red rotating lights.
When I looked down there, all I seen was red lights going around. The first thing that entered my mind was that it was a helicopter, but there was no noise. The dog, he took off down through the field.
You know, the dog disappeared. They had search parties looking for it for days and never could locate the dog.
And within the span of 1 day, Point Pleasant witnesses yet another incident.
November 15th, 1966, these two young couples, Steve and Mary Mallett and Roger and Linda Scarberry, were just riding around the TNT area. And as they topped one of the little dirt road hills, they saw what they thought was a man standing in the road. As they got closer, Linda said that, "I don't think that's a man."
They find themselves standing face to face with a human-like figure with giant wings and fiery red eyes.
And she said it had a wingspan of probably 10 to 12 feet. They got closer in the car, and whatever this thing was, it ran towards one of the vacant power plant buildings.
In panic, the young people take to their heels.
And that's whenever they went out to the main highway and started heading back into town. And that's when Linda said it came over top of their car.
They step on it and drive away, but the strange creature has no trouble keeping up with the car.
They were doing probably 90, 95 miles an hour down the straight stretch of the highway, and she said it came over top of the car. She said the wings were so big when it flapped its wings, which was very intermittently, the wings were hitting the bottom of the car doors, slapping the sides of the car door. And that was the beginning of the sightings here in Point Pleasant.
Local newspapers jump on the story and report what the four witnesses told the police.
I could hear the wings flapping as if to get more speed as it went up. We were all terrified and kept yelling for Rocket to go faster.
This thing stood about 6 feet tall with wings on its back. It was light gray in color.
It has muscular legs like a man and fiery red eyes that glow when the light hits it.
Eyewitness reports are generally unreliable because of the malleability of human memory, and particularly when we have a group, the fact that everybody will have different cognitive biases, which means they'll notice different elements of importance. However, in this case, the group of teenagers were all interviewed independently, but all gave the same story, which does make the evidence stronger.
This thing, whatever it is, definitely not a crane or a goose or a balloon or any of the things it's been called. I've seen it. Know what it looks like.
I know people are laughing at us. People have said we were probably liquored up, but we were not.
At first, hardly anyone believes their story. But in the days to come, the Mothman is spotted 8 more times.
You had several more sightings, in the following weeks. And, it was all different types of people. It was elderly people, it was business people, school teachers, It wasn't just a bunch of teenagers seeing a big bird flying around in the TNT area.
In the following weeks and months, an increasing number of witnesses come forward, claiming to have also seen the creature. Their descriptions match. They all claim to have seen a human-like figure, over 2 meters tall, with wings spanning 3 to 4 meters, sharp claws, and bright red eyes. People tell of his blood-curdling cries and how he follows cars and targets small animals. Is there perhaps more to these sightings than pure imagination?
A lot of people were scared. You know, they were scared to go out at night. The local elementary schools wouldn't let the kids out during recess there for a while because they thought this thing was big enough to come down and pick a little kid up, fly off with him. So that somebody was taking it serious at that time.
Fair Leaport is convinced that the Mothman is real. To this day, she feels uneasy going to the old military facility where she and her siblings are alleged to have seen the Mothman.
Yes, this here area was the ideal place for the Mothman. And we were just coming down through here. My brother was going to prove that it was fake because he likes to show people up. He's know-it-all. And it was right beside our car, right beside where I was sitting in the car, right there by the window. If I'd rolled the window down, I could have touched it.
The 4 teenagers try to outrun the Mothman.
And it just followed right along by the car. And just like no problem at all for it to be there. And we turned thinking it would stay straight. It turned right with us. It just went from the side to the hood. Now, how could it have done that? Just in a blink of an eye. Squatted and just sat there and looked at us. Just kind of look at him, then look at me, and then look at me. Just like, you know, what are you? I'm trying to figure out what you are, you know. Are you going to do something to me? We was wondering, is it going to do something to us? Because we thought it could have kicked the windshield out.
Shortly thereafter, the creature disappears into the dark night.
And then it just stood up and jumped. That's when the prettiest set of wings I ever saw, big enough to hold that weight and that length of the form it was, and just carried it right on off into the night. And we never saw it again.
But the sightings continue. A growing number of people report having had similar spooky encounters. Many locals believe the Mothman is a herald of doom. In many cultures, moths symbolize death. A moth that enters a house is said to be a sign of imminent disaster. Others believe that moths travel between the worlds and harbor evil spirits.
The moth started out, of course, as a caterpillar, but unlike the butterfly, which opens into the day, the moth opens into the night, which is associated with death. So it's like it's being reborn into death itself. And so the Mothman, is a kind of natural figure that represents both transformation, a kind of future metamorphosis, but also one that lives in the domain of the dark, in the domain of death.
So is the Mothman really a bad omen, bringing disaster to Point Pleasant? On December the 15th, 1967, these fears seem to materialize. At 5:04 p.m., the Ohio River is struck by a catastrophe. The Silver Bridge collapses exactly at rush hour. Nearly all of the 37 cars on the bridge at that moment fall into the river. 46 people die. For some Point Pleasanters, it's clear that the Mothman ushered in the catastrophe.
The Mothman event was incredibly traumatic. 46 people died, and there were a huge number of paranormal activity reports, and when there are that number of reports and that many people die, it's going to be a hard memory for Americans to forget.
The winged creature was reportedly seen on the bridge just minutes before it collapsed. Speculations are spreading. Is the Mothman an evil spirit? A demon from the afterlife?
People believe in bad omens because they give us some control over something that is uncontrollable, one of the functions of myth. In this case, with the bad omens in the Mothman, it's about trying to control the future. So the fact that the Mothman is there and he can tell people about what's going to happen in the future gives these myths more power.
Since then, people all over the world have spoken out, also claiming to have seen a winged creature shortly before catastrophic events, like the collapse of other US bridges, during the swine fever in Mexico, and also before the 9/11 attacks. Is the Mothman trying to warn us? Is he the bearer of disaster? Or is it all just a figment of our imagination? Linda Godfrey is looking for answers. The cryptozoologist is an expert when it comes to sightings of mysterious creatures. She's been on the trail of these alleged monsters for more than 20 years in the US.
In a time when everybody is looking to explain the unexplainable animals that we have all around us, somehow we have to try and sort out which are real natural animals and which are things that come to us from some other realm.
The Mothman has been most frequently sighted in the TNT area of the former military grounds in Point Pleasant. Linda Godfrey uses technology to get to the bottom of the mystery.
Ooh. So I got a small reading with the magnetic, which was interesting. And then I switched it over to the radio, microwave, and got quite a lively jump there for a few seconds that it was handling it. And then whatever it was moved away. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Mothman was here, but sometimes there are links between sightings of unknown creatures and odd EMF or electromagnetic readings of different instruments. So it's maybe just a hint of the past.
Is there a physical explanation for the Mothman? Linda Godfrey is investigating several theories.
A lot of people think that the Mothman is something that came from another dimension. And when I see this series of concrete buildings, one set inside the other, just in a row, and then it ends in the woods, it's like a portal into another dimension. You can see why somebody would think that.
Like many others, Linda Godfrey believes that creatures like the Mothman appear as heralds of calamity.
A harbinger of doom is what many people have called this creature and others like it, because they seem to show up when something bad is going to happen and then disappear soon after. Are they here to warn us? We don't know. It seems that often the warning isn't heeded or is misunderstood.
Are there any living creatures that science still doesn't have an explanation for? Linda Godfrey is convinced many beings and forces exist that we still don't know about.
I don't really know if there is a way to interpret what these things are trying to tell us. If anything, perhaps they're just observing from some other place that is interested in this sort of tragic thing that happened at the Silver Bridge.
After the bridge collapsed, an increasing number of people report to have seen the Mothman before the tragedy. People soon say Point Pleasant is cursed. And indeed, there was a dark period in the city's history. It dates back almost 250 years. Back then, white settlers are pushing further into the territory of Native Americans. The Shawnee are defending their land against the intruders. Their battle is bitter. One of the bloodiest battles takes place on October the 10th, 1774, near what's now Point Pleasant. The Shawnee are defeated, and Chief Cornstalk is forced to sign a peace agreement with the Palefaces. A few years later, Cornstalk is arrested by soldiers, and killed in cold blood. Legend has it that the chief cursed the place just before he died.
To understand American folklore, you need to appreciate the different layers to it. You have the Native American beliefs, then you have the European settlers, and then a whole new wave of migrations. And they all bundle together and clash and create something that's completely unique.
Is the Mothman nothing more than the personified version of Chief Cornstalk's curse?
The giving of a curse as someone dies is a old motif. It's happened in myths and memories throughout time. And there's something about somebody straddling both sides of existence, life and death, where they're kind of trusted to almost have some power or at least some ability to see what's going on the other side.
The dramatic events have left their mark on Point Pleasant to this day. Once a year, amateur actors reenact the battle and the murder of the Shawnee leader in the fort where Chief Cornstalk was killed. Denny Bellamy has been studying the history of Point Pleasant for many years. He sees it as his duty to keep the story of Chief Cornstalk's death alive.
They just kicked open the door of the cabin that Cornstalk and his sons were held in and shot him. And that kind of created a legend. Apparently, they said that Chief Cornstalk put a curse on Point Pleasant for murdering he and his sons. And it's become part of West Virginia history. And the Cornstalk's curse on Point Pleasant, it's in our 8th grade West Virginia history books. And it just naturally became part of the Mothman legend.
Those who believe in this theory point to several other tragedies in the Point Pleasant region. One such tragedy being amongst the worst mining accidents in the history of the United States. The region has also been hit by tornadoes and floods. Some think this is clearly Chief Cornstalk's revenge, and the Mothman shows up as a sign of the catastrophe to come.
The myth has survived for so long because it's got such great themes of bravery, morals, and injustice. And it's also the same story repeated. You have the Native Americans fighting for their land, and then you have the settlers fighting for their own land against the English. And it all gets bundled up and confused with the Mothman story itself. And that meant that it survived for generations.
The notion that winged hybrid creatures are evil omens dates back to antiquity. One such example are the mythical harpies. Upon the gods' command, they allegedly carry the souls of the deceased into the underworld or kill sinners and blasphemers on Earth. Is the 20th century Mothman linked to an ancient legend? Or is it a completely different creature living in the woods of West Virginia? Benjamin Radford is an expert for paranormal activity. In other words, he tries to explain monster sightings. Like in Point Pleasant.
I've heard a lot about Mothman over the years, but I've never been here, so this is very cool for me. I've never been to the area, and I want to see what's going on. I investigate mysterious creatures and monsters around the world, especially the folklore. I love the folklore, I love the legends, and I love to decide, is this real or is it not real? That's what's cool to me.
Benjamin Radford wants to find out what the Mothman is all about. Pure imagination, or is there more to the story? With artist Brian Jarrell, they pore over old witness statements looking for clues. Could there be an explanation that's been overlooked?
When I was standing in front of it, it impressed me how much wider it was than me. I would say that its shoulders would at least a foot on each side of me wider.
What did these people see? The artist tries to depict their descriptions as accurately as possible.
So this is one taken in 1966 by Marcella Bennett. She described it, quote, like a big bird. She described a head, but not much about the head, but she described the head's position as being sort of on the side. So let's listen to a bit of the tape and see if we can hear more.
And then I just started looking up, and when I got to the shoulders and the head, I could see it wasn't a man, that it looked more like a bird. But it was too big. In my mind, I thought it was too big for a bird. My mind was just, I thought, you know, I've never saw anything like this.
There you go, but clearly a large bird-like creature.
The descriptions match up. Is there a natural explanation?
So we have another report. This one was from Darren Hayes. And this was, I think, in the late 90s. So let's listen to another segment there.
Yeah, I just knew that I was in a dangerous situation. It just felt like something evil was coming that way. You know, I saw, you know, this big bird-looking thing go over top of my car. I mean, it was big. Chased me all the way clear out to the main road, 62 or whatever that is. And I headed to Point Pleasant, and I felt threatened, like, you know, I was in danger.
The witnesses give different details, but their accounts have one thing in common. The full picture surrounding the sightings in and around Point Pleasant remains vague and eerie.
There's one strong theme in these reports, and that's ambiguity. It's not clear what they saw. In the report, they say, I don't know what I saw. They give little details. They saw feathers, they saw a head, they saw little small things, but they don't know what they saw. If they knew what they saw, then it wouldn't be a mystery.
There are just two recurring features, large wings and glowing red eyes. Benjamin Radford has a theory as to what those people might have encountered.
I reviewed the original Mothman eyewitness descriptions, and they're all very bird-like. A glimpse here, a glimpse there, including the red eyes. So we wanted to come here to the wildlife sanctuary to sort of see what eyewitnesses might have seen.
Radford believes the sightings of the Mothman can be traced back to large owls. They are nocturnal and fly nearly inaudibly through the night. Could it be that the myth is nothing but a case of mistaken identity in the dark?
Look at the claws.
Yeah.
Wow. And just the eyes are just, wow. One of the early depictions was of these glowing red eyes. You're used to it, but I'm telling you, when the bird turns and looks at you, it's unnerving. It's absolutely unnerving.
Owls have strikingly bright eyes, sometimes yellow, sometimes red. But is that enough of an explanation? Benjamin Radford has yet another theory. The eyes of many nocturnal animals produce a potentially scary effect at night. They glare brightly, especially if they're caught in the lights of a car or a torch. Nocturnal animals have a reflective layer behind their retina called the tapetum lucidum. It reflects light, allowing them to see better in the dark, and also making their eyes glow. In owls, this reflective layer can even look bright red. Can it be that the whole fuss about the Mothman has been caused by an owl from the West Virginian woods?
One thing I especially noticed was when it was flying at me, it was just startling because you don't hear it. It's just suddenly there. And you can imagine if you're out somewhere in the wilderness at night, and if you have a flashlight or something, and you suddenly see this coming at you, it has this like strobe light effect in your head.
But one detail of the owl theory doesn't add up. Witnesses have described the Mothman as 2 meters tall with a wingspan of up to 4 meters.
So when you look at the wingspan of these owls, they're between about 3 and 5 feet wide, Well, the Mothman is supposed to be far bigger than this. The wingspan would have to be 3 or 4 times his width, and it just doesn't make sense biologically. It can't be a real animal.
Is it possible that owls seem larger at night? Or is there another explanation for the Mothman sightings? Psychologists Niels Harbinger and Svenja Hausner want to investigate these occurrences. They specialize in analyzing witness statements in criminal cases. Do they see any patterns in the Mothman reports? An experiment with 2 test groups at a former factory site in Berlin.
One group will be briefed on tasks to be solved. Once they're working on the tasks, the Mothman will appear. Afterwards, we will ask them what they think they saw. The second group, however, will receive old information about the Mothman myth in addition to their tasks.
Will the 2 groups make divergent statements? The first participants set off into the dark building. A scavenger hunt distracts them from the actual test. All of a sudden, our Mothman actor appears.
Oh my God, I saw something, a ghost.
Directly following the encounter, the scientists asked the group what they experienced.
Tell us, what did you see? Of course, I couldn't see much. It was all quite blurry, and I only saw it out of the corner of my eye.
And if you had to compare it to something you've seen before, what would you say?
Batman.
Yes, I would have thought of Batman too.
Definitely Batman.
With red coals, glowing embers as eyes, I'd say.
The second group is up. Will the priming, the process of influencing them with information beforehand, affect their perception?
Okay, so what did you see? What was particularly striking?
Okay, so the creature was black, and then it moved a bit like a flying bird, but well, without actually flying.
Wings flapping.
Wings flapping?
Yes.
All right, I think I heard a cry.
What did you think of when you saw it?
I thought of the Mothman, because we had read about him in the texts before.
My first thought also was that it reminded me of the Mothman.
Which one of you actually saw something at all?
Well, I, for example, didn't see it, but now that everyone said they saw something, I'm starting to think I saw it too.
Well, I really didn't see him at all. I only heard the stories about what the others saw and heard some sort of sound. And in my imagination, I picture something horribly frightening, quite huge and bird-like, just because I've been influenced by what the others saw.
The experiment demonstrates that priming works. Those who have heard the story of the Mothman are more likely to believe that they actually saw him.
In the second group, several features were mentioned that were also mentioned in the newspaper articles, like the feathers and the wings. This shows that the information presented in the articles influenced their perception.
Psychologists have an explanation for this. Whenever we see something inexplicable, our brain fills the gaps with information it already has. Many Mothman sightings can therefore be traced back to media reports.
Apart from emotional state and stress, other people's suggestions can have a powerful impact on what we remember because the memory is so malleable. So in the case of Mothman, where there's a lot of contagious behavior and a lot of media interest, the fact that so many people are talking about it can alter our memory.
So is the Mothman really nothing more than hype created by the local media in Point Pleasant?
Word spread real quick, around town that, something strange was going on in the TNT area. So it got to the point where everybody was driving up to the TNT area to get a look at whatever this thing was. And it got kind of dangerous because people were taking guns and rifles and things like that. So the National Guard had to come in and kind of quarantine that area off. It was kind of like a hunt for Frankenstein.
In fact, after the collapse of the Silver Bridge, Mothman sightings have declined sharply. It seems that the disaster has brought a new story into focus. Others believe the Mothman moved on after the tragedy to wreak havoc elsewhere. Or is it not the Mothman that carries on, but rather the story itself?
University 911, where's your emergency?
In the early hours of February the 28th, 2019, a man calls the Chicago police.
Hello, I think there's a strange creature in the parking lot, something weird.
The caller reports having seen an unusual creature with wings and glowing eyes. The sheriffs immediately rush to the place of the sighting, but the creature is nowhere to be found. In the official police report, the creature is described as being 7 to 8 feet tall, in all black. It allegedly made a screech noise and followed the man before eventually retreating. In the report, the sheriff on duty flags the case with the words, "Investigation to continue." It's not the first sighting of its kind in Chicago. Since the 60s, there have been many reports from people all claiming to have seen a winged creature. In 2017 alone, it was allegedly seen 50 times. To this day, there is still a steady stream of sightings. Chicago eyewitnesses also describe a black creature with wings taller than a man with glowing eyes. Some link the Chicago Mothman to the creature from Point Pleasant. Author Tobias Wayland has interviewed close to 100 eyewitnesses for his research on the Chicago Mothman. In Chicago, Wayland wants to put the statements into context.
We're here at the North Branch of the Chicago River at their River Walk. This is the sighting of David Ramos's 1971 encounter with a tall, thin-winged humanoid.
In 1971, David Ramos, a former Chicago police officer, made a discovery on the banks of the river. To this day, he still has no explanation for it.
I'm going to go ahead and try to get David on the phone here.
Ramos now lives in Florida. Wayland has been in contact via phone and email.
Dave here. Yeah, hey Dave, it's Tobias. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me again. And I was hoping that you would you'd just walk me through your experience.
I was like 12 years old or so, and I went up on the bank of the river and looked north, and about 200 feet away there was a huge figure, and I was looking, and it turned and it looked at me. Like I couldn't see a face, but I could see, like, two big eyes.
Right, and do you remember what color those eyes were?
They were like yellow.
Okay.
A yellowish or red. It was just like it seemed to me like they looked like goggles.
Okay.
But because they were big, and then the right wing went up, his right hand went up, and it was a big wing, and it was black, and it flew up into the tree. That thing stuck in my head forever.
Right.
After that. Now I'm 60 years old.
Wow. And so
the weirdest thing I ever seen in my life to this day.
The Mothman sightings in Chicago remain a mystery. Many witnesses are afraid to speak out publicly, worrying they won't be taken seriously.
if you believe these witnesses, if you take them at their word, and often I have no reason not to, then there is no natural, mundane explanation for what they've seen. But do I believe that the possibility exists that it could be something paranormal, that is to say, outside of our normal consensus reality? Yes, I do think that's possible.
So was it more than just a nightly encounter with owls after all? People in Point Pleasant have their own theory. The Mothman is not the only seemingly inexplicable sighting that was made in the area in the 60s. Witnesses claim to have seen strange lights and UFOs at Point Pleasant around the same time as the Mothman sightings. Faye Leapold and her siblings saw them too.
We saw something while we were after them cows. We were sitting on the hillside and something all of a sudden was right above us and opened up spotlight or some kind of light shining down on us to the point that it just felt like it was so strong that it was just beating down on your head. And I just kept feeling that light. And I said, what is this, you know? And I looked up and that's when I could see a perfectly oval shaped gray. And then as soon as I did, the light went off and it was gone, just as quiet as it came, just as quiet as it left.
More than 100 witnesses report having seen similar flying objects in 1966 and 1967. Others speak of mysterious men in black, men dressed in black suits visiting Point Pleasant. Were they trying to cover something up? Is the Mothman an extraterrestrial? Or a secret experiment of the US government?
In the 60s, we weren't very far removed from a nuclear blast, from major state propaganda. We were in the middle of a Cold War. Espionage was sky high. Paranoia was very real. And we see the world through the lens that is ourself. So at this time, it's possible that our relationship with the Mothman story could have had something to do with the paranoia that was stimulated at that time.
As early as the 1960s, there were stories about the TNT area near Point Pleasant. Allegedly, the facility served to conduct experiments and weapon tests. Some even believe it was a secret military base. Fact is, in World War II, an ammunition factory was built along the eastern shores of the Ohio River, producing hundreds of tons of TNT explosives a day. The factory area was kept top secret.
This was a city within itself, okay? The people that worked there during wartime, it was very high security. You couldn't just drive up there and look around, you know. They would take people to work on buses that had the windows blackened. They didn't even actually know where they were going to work. They would work their shift, they would bring them back into town and drop them off.
It remains unclear whether other secret military projects were taking place on site. The documents are still classified. Today, the forest surrounding the former ammunition factory seems deserted. Old bunkers where the explosives were stored remain to this day. Benjamin Bradford is in hot pursuit of the Mothman.
So there are hundreds of bunkers around here, and this is one of them. This one's still closed off. In fact, it says high explosives on it. So I don't know what's in there, but probably dangerous. Anytime you have something that's hidden or kept secret like this, it's going to generate stories. It's going to generate mystery because people want to know what's in there, what's going on there. Why is this still closed?
Is all this secrecy just fuel for the imagination? In the late 70s, fishermen make an unsettling discovery. They find red toxic water seepage. Apparently, the ammunition factory's dangerous legacy. It seems they have been poisoning the area for decades. Some even speculate that the appearance of the mysterious Mothman may be linked with the poison.
Some people thought that this Mothman creature or giant bird or whatever may have got into some toxic waste. It sounds like a script right out of a science fiction movie, you know. But they thought, well, maybe this was a bird. It was a mutated bird of some sort.
The exact composition of the chemical residues in the area remains unknown. It seems likely that more dangerous waste is hidden there.
It's not just a wild area, it's also a contaminated area and a government-controlled area. At one point, it was a secret base. And later on, when it was discovered it was polluted, that just added to the story, right? Because the question is it mutants? Is it some sort of unknown, top-secret, evil monster that came out of it? And it's that whole sort of Frankenstein's monster theory, right? It's like, you know, man was meddling in things they shouldn't have meddled in, and what may have come from it? And to some people, the answer is Mothman.
The secrets of the TNT area still fuel the legend of the Mothman to this day.
It's a pretty creepy place, whether there's Mothman here or not. A place like this is exactly where you would expect monster stories to come from. This is monster heaven, right? This is where they are. They're always the creatures of the edge, and this is the edge.
And it seems as though the Mothman continues to haunt the place.
On Sunday evening, a man driving along State Route 2 in Point Pleasant had seen a strange creature jumping from tree to tree. Is this the legendary Mothman?
On November the 20th, 2016, a man takes these pictures from his car. They bear an uncanny resemblance to the sightings from 50 years ago. Some believe that the Mothman has returned.
Urban legends remain powerful, partly because they exist in that grey area between truth and fantasy, and because of this, our fascination with them persists over time.
Even in Chicago, there is still no end in sight to the strange incidents. Time and again, witnesses are getting in touch with Tobias Wayland, saying they saw the eerie creature.
All right, so here we are at Little Village's Petrowski Park. This is one of the sighting locations of the Chicago Mothman. Let's go have a look.
In September 2017, the bird-like creature was spotted here 5 times.
This is a largely Mexican-American community, and so they would describe the creature that they were seeing using that language. Often we would hear it compared to a lechuza, which is a shape-shifting witch in Mexican folklore.
During the day, lechuza is said to take the shape of a woman. At night, she turns into an owl-like monster with black wings and red shining eyes. Like the Mothman, she is considered a bad omen.
People would describe this feeling of fear that talking about what they had seen later would summon this thing back into their lives, as though just speaking about it would cause them to gain this creature's attention.
Wayland can't explain the events, but the sheer number of sightings suggests that something unusual is going on here.
Most of the people with whom I've spoken have reported that their personal timeline with their sighting is that they have the sighting prior to being aware of the phenomenon, which, if true, would actually argue against any kind of mass hysteria phenomenon happening.
To this day, people still contact Wayland, claiming to have seen the winged figure. Faye Leaport is convinced, too, that her encounter with the Mothman was no illusion.
I think the Mothman, or whatever you want to call that thing, I think it was a race of something from another planet. I think it's nested out here. I really do believe it did. So anything could have made its nest up here and had a very good time of it because of all the trees, the brush, and then these bunkers. And being that it was in a man-type or human-type form, rather than roost in a tree or some kind of nest would make, what better place to hide out than those bunkers? So this was like hog heaven to it, in my opinion, and I think that's why it stayed in this area.
She even had a drawing made based on what she could recall from the incident.
The wings were like a bird, like I said all along, but it did not have feathers on its body, a fur-like type texture with dinosaur-type skin for the arms and hands and feet. And the biggest eyes, red, that you could possibly ever not even imagine, even really. I don't recall any kind of noise it made through our whole, I'd say 20 to 30 minutes of seeing this thing. I think it, was just trying to figure out what we were.
Jeff Wemsley also doesn't believe the story is just a figment of our imagination.
People now, with one touch of a button on a computer, can tell their story to millions of people. But back in 1966, it was one thing to go to the police department and tell them that you saw a 7-foot man with wings and red eyes, That was just unheard of. If it would have been just 2 or 3 people and that was it, I would be more skeptical than I have been, But when I talked to those people, I thought, why are they telling me this? They really have nothing to gain. They're just going to be ridiculed and made fun of,
Many eyewitnesses still struggle to be taken seriously.
That's all we can tell is what we saw. We're not going to expound on it and make it bigger, trying to make something into it. It don't matter to us. You can be skeptical all you want to about it. It wasn't you, it was us, and we're not even going to argue about it because I've always learned one thing. You can tell a lie 100 times trying to prove it, and it'll all be a different way. A truth stands for itself, and you can tell it over and over, and it'll be the same every time you tell it. And that's what these people and myself are telling, over and over and over, the same thing, the truth.
It remains unclear who or what the people in Point Pleasant and elsewhere saw, or whether the Mothman is just a figment of their imagination. But one thing seems certain. It is only a matter of time until the Mothman is seen again.